talk about the beautiful business of milk today, yeah. I got milk. Let's talk about milk. Oh yeah, baby, let's talk about the beautiful business of milk today.
This episode of Got Milk is sponsored by Shunya Agritech, the folks revolutionizing cattle nutrition with hydroponic green fodder. Visit their website at shunya.live for more details or download the Shunya app from Play Store or App Store.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're diving into the world of Indian dairy, specifically a project called Dairying Through Cooperatives, or DTC for short.
Okay.
We've got project manuals, reports, all about how India is aiming to boost. It's already a massive dairy industry.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, some of these stats are pretty mind-blowing. Did you know India produces 20% of the world's milk?
Wow.
That's a lot of chai lattes.
That's a lot of milk.
But here's the thing. Most of the farmers supplying this milk are small scale.
Okay.
Maybe just a few cows each. Getting that milk to the cities, where the demand is booming,
Right.
is a logistical puzzle.
It really is. A puzzle with huge implications. We're not just talking about milk. We're talking about livelihoods for millions of farmers and a food system that needs to keep pace with a rapidly growing population.
Right, and that's where DTC comes in. It's a project funded by the Japanese government, working to modernize India's dairy scene. We're talking new processing plants, better collection infrastructure, and even training programs for farmers. It's like they're giving the entire system a tech upgrade.
Yeah, it's fascinating because it's not just starting from scratch. DTC is building on the success of something called Operation Flood, which back in the 70s and 80s totally revolutionized India's dairy sector.
Operation Flood, I've heard whispers.
Right.
What was so special about it? Why is it the foundation for this new project?
Well, imagine India before Operation Flood. Milk shortages, price fluctuations, a system that wasn't really working for anyone. Operation Flood created a national milk grid, connecting farmers in rural areas to consumers in cities, all through a cooperative system. It was a game changer. And now DTC is taking that model and adapting it for the 21st century, tackling new challenges like climate change, quality control, an increasingly globalized market.
Okay, that context is super helpful. But before we get too deep into the how, let's talk about the why. Why does India need DTC now? What's driving this whole push to revamp the dairy sector?
Well, think about it this way. India's population is exploding. Incomes are rising. More people are incorporating dairy into their diets. That means the demand for milk is skyrocketing. But the current infrastructure just can't keep up.
So it's like rush hour on a one-lane road, all that milk.
Yeah.
All those farmers trying to get to market. It's bound to create bottlenecks.
Exactly. And one of the biggest bottlenecks is the lack of cooling facilities. You try keeping milk fresh in the scorching Indian heat without proper refrigeration. It's nearly impossible.
Yeah.
Many farmers in remote areas simply don't have access to this kind of infrastructure, which means they're locked out of the more lucrative organized milk market.
Okay, that makes sense. So what's the difference between this organized market and whatever else is out there? Why is it so important for farmers to be a part of it?
Well, the organized market is all about ensuring fair prices, consistent demand, and a reliable income for farmers. It's about creating a system where they're not at the mercy of middlemen or local fluctuations in supply and demand. It provides stability and a path to economic growth. DTC is all about helping farmers access that system.
So DTC is building the on-ramp to the dairy superhighway.
That's a great analogy. And it's not just about building that on-ramp, it's about providing the vehicles and training drivers to navigate that highway successfully.
Okay, now we're talking. We've got the why down. But how does DTC actually work? What are the nuts and bolts of this operation? What does it actually do to help these farmers?
Well, as we mentioned, there's a big focus on infrastructure. They're building new milk processing plants, upgrading existing ones, and setting up better milk collection systems. But it's more than just bricks and mortar.
Here's where it gets really interesting, right? This isn't just a construction project. From what I'm seeing in these reports, there's a huge emphasis on empowering farmers, not just building stuff around them.
Absolutely. They're providing farmers with bulk milk coolers so they can maintain the quality of their milk. Even in remote areas, they're offering training on everything, from animal nutrition and breeding to financial management. They're even teaching farmers how to run their dairy operations like successful businesses.
Whoa, hold on. It's like dairy business school out there.
Yeah.
What kind of training are we talking
Yeah.
about? And how do they make sure all this knowledge actually sticks with the farmers?
That's the million-dollar question. And that's where the real innovation of DTC comes in. We'll delve into those details right after a quick word from our sponsors. All right, so let's jump back into those training programs, because that's where the rubber really meets the road with DTC.
Okay.
It's one thing to provide infrastructure and funding, but it's another to actually equip farmers with the knowledge and skills they need to make the most of these opportunities.
Yeah, it's like giving someone a fancy new kitchen, but they don't know how to cook.
Right.
What good is all that equipment if they're just going to make instant ramen?
Exactly. DTC understands that sustainable change comes from empowering people. And their training programs are designed to do just that. They cover a wide range of topics, from the basics of clean milk production and quality control to more advanced stuff like strategic planning, marketing.
Wait, hold up. Marketing. Are we talking milk commercials with dancing cows here? I'm picturing Bollywood-style jingles.
Maybe not dancing cows. But they are teaching farmers how to differentiate their products, understand consumer demand, and effectively market their milk and dairy products. It's about moving beyond just production and thinking like entrepreneurs.
That's so cool. So it's not just about producing more milk. It's about producing better milk and knowing how to sell it.
Precisely. And they've recognized that most producer-owned institutions, or POIs, basically, these are the farmer-owned cooperatives,
Okay.
have traditionally focused on milk procurement, the logistical side of things, but they haven't always had the skills or knowledge to handle the processing and marketing side of the business.
So they're filling in the gaps, turning these farmers into savvy business owners. But how do they actually deliver this training? Are we talking stuffy classrooms and boring lectures?
Not at all. They've got this really interesting system where they combine classroom learning with hands-on experience. They call it a concept-to-action approach.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
So the core modules start with theoretical learning at a training center, but then they take it a step further. The farmers develop action plans based on what they've learned, and then they actually implement those plans at their own dairy or cooperative.
So they're not just passively absorbing information, they're actively applying it in the real world. I like that.
And there's another layer to it. After they've implemented their plans, they come back together for a reflection workshop with other POIs to share their experiences and best practices. It's about learning from each other, not just from the trainers.
It's like a support group, but for dairy entrepreneurs. That's brilliant. It makes the learning so much more practical and engaging.
Exactly. And it fosters a sense of community and shared learning, which is crucial for long-term success. Now, one of the most fascinating aspects of the DTC training program is the partnership with Japan.
Oh, yeah, I read about this. They're sending some of the farmers and cooperative leaders to Japan for training. Right, it's like a dairy exchange program.
It is, and it's a testament to the fact that DTC is thinking globally, recognizing that there are valuable lessons to be learned from other countries with highly developed dairy industries.
Okay, so Japan. Why Japan? What makes their dairy industry so special? Are they like the dairy gurus of the world?
Well, they've certainly got a lot to offer. Japan has a long history of dairy farming, and they've developed incredibly efficient and hygienic systems for producing high-quality milk and dairy products. They're known for their stringent quality control measures and their innovative approach to processing and packaging.
So it's about learning from the best, seeing how they do it in a country where the dairy industry is super advanced. I bet those trips to Japan are like winning a golden ticket to Dairy Wonderland.
I'm sure they are. The participants get to visit state-of-the-art dairy farms and processing plants, meet with industry experts, and learn about the latest technologies and best practices.
So what are they hoping these trainees will bring back to India? Besides some cool souvenirs, of course.
Well, the goal is to expose them to new ideas, inspire them to think outside the box, and help them bring back practical knowledge and skills that they can implement in their own operations.
It's about planting seeds of innovation and watching them grow.
Exactly. And it's not just about individual learning. These participants are expected to become trainers themselves when they return to India, sharing what they've learned with other farmers and cooperatives.
So it creates a ripple effect. One person learns something new, and then they spread that knowledge to others. It's like a dairy knowledge chain reaction.
Precisely. And that's how sustainable change happens. It's not just about top-down interventions. It's about creating a culture of learning and innovation within the dairy sector itself.
I'm loving this. We've got infrastructure, we've got training, we've got international collaboration. It's like they've thought of everything. But what about the money? Who's footing the bill for all this? I imagine all these new plants and training programs don't come cheap.
You're absolutely right. These projects require significant investment. But DTC has a clear cost-sharing structure in place, and that's where things get even more interesting.
Ooh, I love a good financial deep dive. Hit me with the numbers.
Well, for strengthening milk procurement infrastructure, which is really the foundation of the whole system, DTC provides a 90% grant, with the remaining 10% coming from the state government or the POI itself.
So they're really incentivizing investment in that crucial first stage of the dairy value chain.
Exactly. It shows where their priorities lie.
Mm-hmm.
Now for the larger scale projects, like building new milk processing facilities, it shifts to a 90% loan with a 10% contribution from the state or the POI.
Okay, so it's a mix of grants and loans.
Yeah.
Strategically allocated to different parts of the project.
Yes. And that mix reflects the different goals and functions of each component. For example, the support for marketing infrastructure comes in the form of an 80% loan and a 20% grant, recognizing that marketing is essential for generating revenue. And interestingly, the training and capacity development programs are funded 100% through grants.
That makes sense. They're investing in the human capital, recognizing that knowledge and skills are just as important as bricks and mortar.
Absolutely. And they've got this clever mechanism called a revolving fund account, which NDDB, the implementing agency, uses to extend loans to even more sub-projects.
Well, explain that again. Revolving fund account. How does that work?
It's kind of like a mini bank within the project. Essentially, they use the funds generated from loan repayments to finance new projects, creating a cycle of continuous investment and growth.
So it's a way to make the funding go further and support even more farmers and cooperatives. That's smart.
It's a sustainable approach, ensuring that the project's impact extends beyond the initial funding cycle. But of course, with loans come collateral, and DTC is pretty strict about that.
Yeah, that makes sense. They want to make sure these investments are secure. What kind of collateral are we talking about?
But typically, it would be existing assets, like land, buildings, machinery, or equipment, enough to cover at least 1.5 times the loan amount. They also consider any new assets installed under the project as collateral.
So they're being prudent, making sure these loans are backed by solid security.
Exactly. And they have a very thorough process for evaluating loan applications, making sure the proposed projects are financially viable, and that the borrowers have a solid plan for repayment. It's not just about handing out money. It's about ensuring that these investments are used responsibly and effectively.
It sounds like they've really thought this through, covering all the bases from training and infrastructure to financing and risk management. But at the end of the day, what does all this mean for the average dairy farmer? How are their lives actually changing because of DTC?
That's the question we need to answer, and the answer is pretty amazing. Let's dig into the real-world impact of DTC right after this short break.
All right, so let's shift gears a little bit and talk about the impact of DTC. We've covered the strategy,
Yeah.
the financing, the training.
Right.
But at the end of the day, how are these farmers' lives actually changing? What does success look like for them?
That's the heart of the matter, isn't it? And the impact is multifaceted. First and foremost, DTC aims to significantly increase the amount of milk processed and sold by these cooperatives. This means more farmers have a reliable market for their milk and a stable source of income.
So it's not just about producing more milk. It's about ensuring that milk actually gets to consumers
Yeah.
and that farmers get paid fairly for it.
Exactly. And remember those challenges we talked about earlier, like the lack of cooling facilities?
Yeah.
DTC is addressing those head-on, providing farmers with the infrastructure they need to maintain the quality of their milk, even in remote areas.
So they're not just increasing quantity, they're improving quality too,
Precisely.
which means farmers can command better prices for their product.
It's a win-win situation. And then there's the impact of those training programs, which goes beyond just technical skills.
Right. We talked about the business management, the marketing, the whole dairy entrepreneur thing. What kind of real-world results are they seeing from that?
Well, imagine a farmer who for years has only known how to milk his cows and sell his milk to whoever comes by suddenly. He's learning about things like animal nutrition, breeding techniques, financial planning. He's becoming a more efficient and profitable farmer.
It's like they're leveling up. They're not just farmers anymore. They're dairy CEOs.
I like that analogy. And it's not just about individual farmers. It's about strengthening the entire cooperative system.
So it's about creating a more organized and powerful collective voice for these farmers.
Exactly. By working together, these farmers can negotiate better prices, access larger markets, and ultimately have more control over their livelihoods. And let's not forget about the social impact, particularly the focus on empowering women.
Yes. That really stood out to me in the reports. They're specifically tracking the participation of women in the program, which is amazing.
It is. Dairy farming is often seen as a male-dominated field. But DTC is challenging that norm, providing training and support to women, helping them become leaders within their communities.
I love that. It's about creating a more equitable and inclusive dairy industry. It's not just about milk. It's about empowering people and transforming lives.
That's a beautiful way to put it, and it's what makes this project so inspiring. But of course, no project is without its challenges.
Okay, let's get real for a second. What are some of the potential roadblocks DTC might face?
Well, one of the biggest challenges is ensuring that the benefits of the project reach all farmers, especially those in the most remote and marginalized communities. Building infrastructure is one thing, but making sure everyone has access to information, training, and support networks is another.
Right, it's about bridging that last mile gap, making sure no one gets left behind.
Exactly. And then there's the challenge of ensuring long-term sustainability. It's not enough to just build new plants and provide training. You need to create a system that can thrive on its own, even after the initial funding runs out.
So how do they plan to do that? What's the secret sauce for long-term success?
It's a combination of factors. You need strong leadership within the cooperatives, effective financial management, a culture of continuous learning and innovation, and you need to stay ahead of the curve, anticipating changes in the market and consumer demand.
So it's not just about producing more milk, it's about producing the right kind of milk, the kind that consumers want.
Exactly. DTC needs to be forward-thinking, exploring new product development opportunities, and ensuring that Indian dairy products remain competitive in a globalized market.
That's a tall order. But from what we've seen today, it seems like they're up for the challenge. It's got a clear vision, a solid plan, and a deep commitment to the farmers they're serving.
I agree. It's an ambitious project, but one with incredible potential. If successful, DTC could transform India's dairy industry, making it a global leader in sustainable and inclusive dairy production.
Now, that's a future I can raise a glass of milk to. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive into the world of Indian dairy.
It's been my pleasure. And for all you listeners out there, we encourage you to keep exploring this topic. There's a wealth of information available online, including DTC's official documents.
And who knows, maybe one day we'll all be enjoying a delicious mango lassi made with milk from a DTC-supported farm, marveling at how far India's dairy industry has come. Until then, stay curious, keep learning. And thanks for listening to the Deep Dive of the Year.
I got milk. Let's talk about milk.